The invitation arrived like a blade, sharp and gleaming, slicing through the quiet of Ellie's small Brooklyn apartment. It was gold-embossed, ostentatious, reeking of her sister Victoria's wealth and spite, addressed to Eleanor Harper and guest. Ellie, 32, stood frozen, her fingers trembling as she read the words, "You're invited to the wedding of Victoria Harper and James Worthington." She hadn't spoken to Victoria in 3 years, not since their mother's funeral, where Victoria's icy dismissal of Ellie's life, her love, her identity, had left wounds that still ached. The invitation wasn't an olive branch. It was a trap, a calculated move by Victoria, the golden child CEO of Harper Enterprises, to parade Ellie's failure as the family's black sheep in front of New York's elite. Ellie could already hear the whispers, the gay sister, the nobody, crashing the perfect wedding. But Ellie wasn't alone anymore. She glanced at the woman curled up on her couch, sketching in a worn notebook under the glow of a thrift store lamp. Maya, 28, with her wild black curls and soft, determined eyes, was the love Ellie had fought for, the one who'd stitched her broken pieces back together. Maya looked up, sensing Ellie's tension, and crossed the room in 3 steps. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice a warm anchor. Ellie handed her the invitation, her heart pounding. Maya's brow furrowed, then her lips curved into a defiant smile. "She wants a show? Let's give her one." Ellie's life hadn't always been this way, small, scrappy, pieced together with freelance graphic design gigs and a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled faintly of coffee and paint. Growing up in the shadow of Victoria's ambition in their wealthy Connecticut family, Ellie had been the dreamer, the artist, the one who loved too openly. When she came out at 19, her parents' disappointment was heavy, but Victoria's betrayal cut deeper. "You're embarrassing us," Victoria had hissed, her perfectly manicured nails digging into Ellie's arm at a family gala. "Keep your preferences private." Now, Victoria was the darling of Manhattan's corporate world, her face plastered on Forbes covers, her engagement to James, a hedge fund heir, the talk of the city. The wedding, set for a lavish estate in the Hamptons, was less a celebration and more a coronation of Victoria's flawless life. Inviting Ellie was a power play, a chance to remind her, and everyone else, that Ellie was the outcast, the failure who'd chosen love over legacy. Maya, though, was Ellie's game-changer. They'd met 2 years ago at a Brooklyn art gallery, where Maya's vibrant paintings, bold strokes of color that seemed to pulse with life, had stopped Ellie in her tracks. Maya was a teacher by day, an artist by night, her spirit fierce yet kind, her laughter a melody that could unravel Ellie's darkest days. They'd fallen hard, fast, their love a quiet rebellion against a world that often refused to see them. "We don't have to go," Ellie said, her voice small, the old fear creeping in. She imagined the stares, the whispers, Victoria's smug smile as she introduced Ellie to her polished guests. Maya set the invitation down, her fingers brushing Ellie's cheek. "Oh, we're going," she said, her voice steady, eyes blazing. "But not to play her game. We're going to show them who we are." Ellie's heart stuttered. Maya's confidence was infectious, but the stakes felt impossibly high. Victoria's world was a battlefield of wealth and judgment, and Ellie had spent years avoiding it. Could she really walk into it, head high with Maya by her side? The days leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind. Ellie and Maya scoured thrift stores for outfits that screamed defiance without breaking their budget. Ellie chose a tailored blazer, crisp white shirt, and jeans that hugged her frame, a look that said she belonged, but on her terms. Maya picked a flowing dress in deep emerald, a color that made her glow like a forest at dawn. They laughed, planned, and practiced dancing in their tiny living room, swaying to old jazz records until the neighbors banged on the walls. But beneath the excitement, Ellie's nerves churned. She lay awake at night, imagining every way Victoria could twist the knife. What if she mocked Maya? What if she brought up their mother's will, which had left Ellie nothing but a box of old sketchbooks? What if the guests saw through her bravado and pitted her? Maya, sensing her fear, would pull her close, whispering, "We're enough, Ellie. Just us." The morning of the wedding dawned bright and crisp, the kind of September day that made the Hamptons feel like a dream. Ellie and Maya drove out in their beat-up Honda, the invitation tucked into the glove box like a grenade. As they neared the estate, Ellie's grip on the steering wheel tightened. The sprawling lawns, the marble fountains, the fleet of valets in crisp uniforms, it was all so Victoria. They stepped out, hand in hand, and Ellie felt the weight of 100 eyes. Guests in designer gowns and tuxedos glanced their way, some curious, others dismissive. Ellie's pulse raced, but Maya's hand was steady, grounding her. "Ready," Maya whispered, her smile a spark of courage. Ellie nodded, her throat tight. "Let's do this." They walked toward the grand entrance, where Victoria's name was emblazoned in gold across a welcome banner. Ellie's heart pounded, but for the first time, she felt something else: resolve. She wasn't here to be humiliated. She was here to claim her place, with Maya by her side. And whatever Victoria had planned, Ellie was ready to turn it upside down. The estate was a spectacle of excess, every detail screaming Victoria's triumph. Crystal chandeliers glittered above manicured gardens, and waiters glided through the crowd with trays of champagne that probably cost more than Ellie's rent. She and Maya stepped into the reception hall, where a string quartet played softly, and the air buzzed with the chatter of New York's elite, bankers, influencers, and CEOs who moved like they owned the world. Ellie's stomach twisted as she scanned the room for Victoria. She spotted her near the center, radiant in a white gown that shimmered like liquid starlight, her blonde hair swept into an elegant updo. James, her fiancé, stood beside her, all sharp cheekbones and tailored charm, laughing with a group of men in tuxedos. Victoria's eyes locked onto Ellie's, and for a moment, the room seemed to still. Her sister's smile was a blade, thin and dangerous, promising trouble. "Ellie," Victoria called, her voice carrying over the crowd, sweet but laced with venom. Heads turned. "You made it. And you brought a friend." The word friend landed like a slap, deliberate and cutting. Ellie felt Maya stiffen beside her, but Maya's smile didn't falter. "Maya Alvarez," she said, stepping forward, her voice clear and unyielding. "Ellie's partner." A murmur rippled through the nearby guests, some curious, others judgmental. Ellie's cheeks burned, but she squeezed Maya's hand, drawing strength from her warmth. Victoria's smile tightened, her eyes flicking over Maya's dress, then back to Ellie. "How charming," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Come, let me introduce you to some people." She led them toward a cluster of guests, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Ellie recognized a few faces, old family friends, business associates, people who'd known her as the awkward teenager hiding her sketchbooks from her parents' disapproval. Victoria's voice was bright, performative. "This is my sister, Eleanor. She's an artist, I suppose. And this is her companion." The word stung, reducing Maya to a footnote. Ellie opened her mouth to protest, but Maya spoke first, her voice calm but firm. "I'm a painter and a teacher. Ellie's work is incredible. Her designs have been featured in galleries across Brooklyn." Victoria's laugh was sharp, dismissive. "Oh, galleries? How quaint." She turned to the group, her smile widening. "Ellie's always been the creative one. Not much for the family business, though." The guests chuckled, and Ellie felt the old shame creeping in, the sense of being less than in Victoria's shadow. But Maya's hand in hers was a lifeline. "Actually," Maya said, her tone light but pointed, "Ellie's building something real. Not everyone needs a corner office to make a difference." The air shifted, the guests' laughter fading into awkward silence. Victoria's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, James approached, his smile polished but distant. "Ellie, good to see you," he said, though his tone suggested he barely remembered her. He glanced at Maya, then back to Victoria, sensing the tension. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," Victoria said, her voice tight. She looped her arm through James's, steering him away. "Enjoy the party, Ellie. Don't get lost in the crowd." As Victoria melted back into the sea of guests, Ellie's heart pounded. "I shouldn't have come," she whispered, her voice trembling. "She's going to keep doing this, making me feel small." Maya turned to her, eyes fierce. "She only wins if you let her. You're not small, Ellie. You're here, you're you, and you're with me. That's enough." Ellie nodded, swallowing hard. Maya was right, but the weight of Victoria's world, the wealth, the judgment, the expectations, was suffocating. They moved to the edge of the room, finding a quiet corner near a window overlooking the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, and for a moment, it felt like they could breathe. "Let's dance," Maya said suddenly, pulling Ellie toward the dance floor. The quartet had shifted to a slow, soulful melody, and couples swayed under the chandeliers. Ellie hesitated, aware of the eyes on them, but Maya's grin was irresistible. "Come on, Harper. Show them we're not hiding." They stepped onto the dance floor, Maya's hand resting lightly on Ellie's waist, their bodies moving in sync. Ellie felt the room blur, the stares fading as she focused on Maya's warmth, her laughter, the way her dress caught the light. For the first time that night, Ellie felt free, like she could be herself without apology. But the moment was fleeting. A woman in a sleek black dress, Claire, one of Victoria's old college friends, approached, her smile too wide to be genuine. "Ellie, it's been ages," she said, her eyes flicking to Maya. "So, this is your situation?" Bold choice, bringing her here. Ellie's stomach dropped. "Her name's Maya," she said, her voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside. "And she's not a choice. She's my partner." Claire's smile faltered, but she pressed on. "Oh, of course. It's just Victoria mentioned you've been struggling. I mean, with the art thing and all. Must be hard, keeping up with her." Maya's grip on Ellie's hand tightened, but her voice was calm, almost playful. "Struggling? Ellie's work sells out at every show. Maybe Victoria's the one playing catch-up." Claire blinked, caught off guard, and excused herself quickly. Ellie turned to Maya, her heart swelling with gratitude and something deeper, pride. Maya wasn't just fighting for her. She was fighting for them both. As the night wore on, Ellie and Maya navigated the party like warriors, deflecting snide comments and curious stares with grace and wit. But Victoria wasn't done. Ellie caught her watching from across the room, her expression unreadable but dangerous. Whatever her sister was planning, it was coming, and Ellie braced herself for the storm. The reception was in full swing, the air thick with laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of self-important conversations. Ellie and Maya had carved out a small space for themselves near the bar, sipping cheap wine and trading quiet jokes to keep the tension at bay. But Ellie's eyes kept drifting to Victoria, who moved through the crowd like a queen, her every gesture calculated to command attention. Then it happened. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight fell on Victoria as she took the stage, microphone in hand. The crowd hushed, all eyes on her. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice smooth and commanding. "This day is about love, family, and celebrating what matters most." Ellie's stomach churned. She knew that tone. Victoria was setting the stage for something cruel. "I want to take a moment," Victoria continued, her smile tightening, "to acknowledge my sister, Eleanor. She's here tonight, which is unexpected, but so special." The spotlight swung toward Ellie and Maya, pinning them in its glare. Ellie froze, her heart hammering as hundreds of eyes turned their way. Maya squeezed her hand, a silent reminder to breathe. Victoria's voice dripped with false warmth. "Ellie's always been different. She's chosen a unique path, one that's taken her far from our family's legacy. But we love her anyway, don't we?" The crowd murmured, some nodding politely, others whispering behind their hands. Ellie felt the humiliation Victoria intended, the subtle jab at her different life, her queerness, her rejection of the Harper empire. She wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor and escape the weight of those stairs. But Maya wasn't having it. She stood, pulling Ellie with her, her voice cutting through the silence. "You're right, Victoria. Ellie's different. She's brave, talented, and honest, qualities not everyone here can claim." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Victoria's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, laughing lightly. "Oh, Ellie's friend is spirited, isn't she? Let's give them a round of applause for courage." The applause was tepid, uncertain, and Ellie felt the room closing in. She wanted to run, but Maya's grip was firm, grounding her. "Don't let her win," Maya whispered fiercely. "We're not here to be her punchline." Victoria moved on, toasting to James and their future, but the damage was done. Ellie felt raw, exposed, every old wound reopened. As the crowd dispersed to the dance floor, she pulled Maya toward the terrace, needing air, needing space. The ocean breeze was cool against her flushed skin, and she leaned against the railing, fighting tears. "I can't do this," Ellie said, her voice breaking. "She's too good at this, making me feel like nothing." Maya cupped Ellie's face, her thumbs brushing away the tears that escaped. "You're not nothing. You're everything to me, and you're stronger than she'll ever be." Ellie wanted to believe her, but the weight of Victoria's cruelty was crushing. They stayed on the terrace, talking softly, Maya recounting stories of her own battles, growing up in a conservative family, fighting to be seen as an artist and a queer woman. Her resilience was a lifeline, pulling Ellie back from the edge. When they returned to the reception, the mood had shifted. The toasts were over, and the party was loosening up, guests mingling under the glow of fairy lights. Ellie and Maya found a table with a few friendly faces, artists and writers who'd slipped into the guest list through James's connections. They welcomed Ellie and Maya warmly, sharing stories of their own struggles and triumphs. For the first time, Ellie felt a flicker of belonging. But Victoria wasn't done. As the night wore on, she approached their table, a glass of champagne in hand, her smile sharp as a razor. "Enjoying yourselves?" she asked, her eyes locking onto Ellie. "I hope you're not feeling out of place." Ellie's jaw tightened, but before she could respond, one of the artists at the table, a woman named Lena, with a shock of purple hair, spoke up. "Out of place? Ellie and Maya are the most authentic people here. You could learn something from them." Victoria's smile froze, and for a moment, Ellie saw a crack in her sister's perfect facade. But Victoria recovered, laughing softly. "Authentic? How sweet. Enjoy the open bar, Lena." She walked away, but the encounter left Ellie shaken. Lena's defense was unexpected, a reminder that not everyone in this room was Victoria's ally. As the night deepened, Ellie and Maya danced again, their bodies close, their laughter a quiet rebellion. They were drawing attention now, not just stares of judgment, but looks of curiosity, even admiration. Ellie caught a few guests whispering, pointing at Maya's dress, at the way they moved together. It wasn't the humiliation Victoria had planned. It was something else, something powerful. But Ellie knew her sister. Victoria didn't lose easily. Whatever she had planned next would be bigger, sharper, designed to cut deeper. And as the night drew to a close, Ellie braced herself for the final blow, knowing that with Maya by her side, she could face anything. The wedding's energy shifted as midnight approached, the polished veneer giving way to a looser, more chaotic vibe. Guests were tipsy, their laughter louder, their inhibitions fading under the weight of too much champagne. Ellie and Maya had found a rhythm, moving between dancing and quiet moments with their newfound allies at the table. But the air still crackled with tension, Victoria's presence a constant shadow. Ellie caught sight of her sister across the room, whispering to a group of women in designer dresses, their glances darting toward her and Maya. The unease in Ellie's chest grew. Victoria was planning something, and it wasn't going to be subtle. Maya, sensing her worry, leaned in, her breath warm against Ellie's ear. "Whatever she's got up her sleeve, we'll handle it." together. Before Ellie could respond, the music stopped, and a hush fell over the crowd. James took the stage, his smile polished but strained, and announced a special moment, a slideshow, a tribute to Victoria's life and their love story. The screen lit up behind him, projecting images of Victoria's childhood, her rise to power, her engagement to James. The crowd cooed and clapped, charmed by the curated perfection. Then the photos shifted. Ellie's breath caught as an old picture of her appeared, awkward, 16, in an ill-fitting dress at a family event, her face flushed with embarrassment. The next slide showed her at 19, caught mid-argument with Victoria at a holiday party, her expression raw and hurt. The images were carefully chosen, each one painting Ellie as the troubled, rebellious sister, the one who didn't fit. The crowd's murmurs grew, some sympathetic, others amused. Ellie's heart pounded, her hands clenching into fists. This was Victoria's masterstroke, a public dissection of Ellie's failures, disguised as nostalgia. The final slide lingered, a grainy photo of Ellie at a pride event, her arm around a woman, her smile defiant but vulnerable. The caption read, "Ellie's journey has been colorful." Laughter rippled through the room, sharp and cruel. Ellie felt exposed, her life reduced to a punchline for Victoria's amusement. She wanted to run, to hide, but Maya's hand found hers, anchoring her. "She's desperate," Maya whispered, her voice fierce. "This is all she's got." Before Ellie could process her words, Maya stood, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She marched to the stage, her emerald dress catching the light, and grabbed the microphone from a startled James. The room fell silent, all eyes on her. Ellie's heart stopped, torn between fear and awe. "Hi, everyone," Maya said, her voice steady, commanding. "I'm Maya Alvarez, Ellie's partner." That slideshow was something, but it left out the best parts of Ellie's story. She paused, her eyes finding Ellie's, a spark of love and defiance in them. "Ellie Harper is the bravest person I know. She's an artist who pours her soul into her work, a woman who loves fiercely despite a world that tries to tear her down. And she's my home." The crowd was silent, the air heavy with shock. Maya continued, her voice rising. "This wedding is beautiful, but love isn't about perfection or power. It's about showing up every day for the people who matter. Ellie does that. Can everyone here say the same?" A few guests clapped, tentative at first, then louder. Ellie's eyes burned with tears, but they weren't from shame. They were from pride, from love. Maya stepped off the stage, ignoring Victoria's furious glare, and pulled Ellie into a tight embrace. The room erupted into whispers, some approving, others scandalized, but Ellie didn't care. Maya had turned Victoria's weapon into a celebration of their love. Victoria stormed toward them, her face a mask of barely contained rage. "You think this is cute?" she hissed, her voice low so only they could hear. "You're making a fool of yourself, Ellie. And your little girlfriend isn't helping." Ellie found her voice, steady for the first time all night. "The only fool here is you, Victoria. You invited me to tear me down, but you forgot one thing. I'm not alone anymore." Victoria's eyes widened, her composure cracking. Before she could respond, James appeared, his expression uneasy. "Vic, let's not do this now," he said, glancing at the curious crowd. "People are watching." "Let them watch," Victoria snapped, but she backed off, her smile returning like a mask. She turned to the guests, raising her glass. "To family," she said, her voice brittle. "Even the ones who challenge us." The toast felt hollow, but the moment passed, the party resuming its chaotic rhythm. Ellie and Maya returned to their table, where Lena and the others greeted them with cheers and raised glasses. "That was incredible," Lena said, grinning. "You two just stole the show." Ellie laughed, the sound shaky but real. For the first time, she felt like she belonged, not in Victoria's world, but in her own, one she'd built with Maya. As they danced again, the weight of the night began to lift, replaced by a quiet strength. But Ellie knew Victoria wasn't finished. Her sister's pride was wounded, and she'd strike again. Harder, smarter. As the night wound down, Ellie and Maya slipped away to the gardens, the stars bright above them. They sat on a stone bench, the ocean's murmur a soft backdrop. "I'm so proud of you," Ellie said, her voice thick with emotion. "You didn't just fight for me. You fought for us." Maya smiled, her fingers tracing Ellie's. "Always will." But the night wasn't over. As they headed back to their car, a figure stepped out of the shadows. James, his face tense. "Ellie," he said quietly, glancing over his shoulder. "We need to talk. It's about Victoria." Ellie's heart skipped a beat as James stood before them, his polished demeanor fraying at the edges. The parking lot was quiet, the distant hum of the party fading behind the rustle of leaves in the Hamptons breeze. Maya stepped closer to Ellie, her presence a steadying force, but her eyes were sharp, wary. "What do you want, James?" Ellie asked, her voice low but firm. She barely knew her sister's fiancé, had only met him a handful of times at family events where he'd been charming but distant, a perfect accessory to Victoria's ambition. James glanced around, ensuring they were alone. "I didn't know she was going to do that, the slideshow, the comments," he said, his voice tight. "I told her it was too much, but she wouldn't listen. She's obsessed with control." Ellie's brows furrowed. "Why are you telling me this?" He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. "Because I'm not sure I can do this. Marry her, I mean. She's not who I thought she was." His eyes flicked to Maya, then back to Ellie. "What you two have, it's real. I see it. Victoria, she doesn't love like that. She loves power." Ellie's breath caught, a mix of shock and suspicion swirling in her chest. Was this a trick? Another layer of Victoria's game? But James's face was raw, his usual confidence replaced by something vulnerable, almost desperate. Maya squeezed Ellie's hand, her expression unreadable but alert. "You're telling me this now?" Ellie said, her voice rising. "On her wedding night? What am I supposed to do with that?" "I don't know," James admitted, his shoulders slumping. I saw what she did to you tonight, and it's not the first time. She's done it to me, too, twisting things, making me feel like I'm never enough. I thought you should know you're not alone." Before Ellie could respond, headlights flashed across the lot, and Victoria's voice cut through the night. "James, where are you?" She appeared moments later, her gown catching the moonlight, her eyes narrowing as she saw the three of them. "What's this?" she demanded, her tone sharp enough to slice through steel. James stiffened, his jaw tight. "Just talking, Vic." "Talking," she repeated, her gaze flicking to Ellie and Maya, her smile cold. "With them? Really, James, you're embarrassing yourself." Maya stepped forward, her voice calm but cutting. "Maybe you're the one who should be embarrassed, Victoria. Using your sister's life as a prop for your ego isn't exactly classy." Victoria's laugh was brittle, her eyes flashing with fury. "You're bold for a nobody. Ellie, control your girlfriend before she ruins what's left of your dignity." Ellie's temper flared, years of hurt boiling over. "Enough, Victoria. You invited me here to humiliate me, but it's not working. I'm not your punching bag anymore." The air crackled with tension, the four of them locked in a silent standoff. Victoria's face was a mask of rage, but for the first time, Ellie saw something else: fear. Her sister wasn't used to being challenged, not like this. James took a step back, his expression conflicted, and murmured, "I should go." He disappeared into the shadows, leaving Ellie and Maya facing Victoria alone. "You think you've won?" Victoria hissed, stepping closer. "You think parading your little love story changes anything? You're still nothing, Ellie. You'll always be nothing." The words stung, but Ellie didn't flinch. She felt Maya's strength beside her, the love that had carried her through this night. "I'm not nothing," she said, her voice steady. "I have a life, a purpose, and someone who loves me for who I am. Can you say the same?" Victoria's face twisted, but before she could respond, Maya interjected, her tone soft but piercing. "You're so busy tearing others down, you've forgotten how to build anything real. That's the saddest thing here." For a moment, Victoria was speechless, her mask slipping. Then she turned on her heel, her gown sweeping the ground, and stormed back toward the party. Ellie let out a shaky breath, her body trembling with adrenaline. Maya pulled her into a hug, her warmth a balm against the night's chill. "Are you okay?" Maya asked, her voice gentle. Ellie nodded, though her heart was still racing. I think I am. For the first time in a long time." They drove back to Brooklyn in silence, the weight of the night settling over them. Ellie's mind replayed James's words, Victoria's cruelty, Maya's courage. She didn't know what James's confession meant for the wedding, for Victoria's perfect life, but it had cracked something open in Ellie, a realization that her sister's power was an illusion, built on fear and control. Back in their apartment, they collapsed onto the couch, still in their party clothes, the city's hum a comforting backdrop. Maya traced lazy circles on Ellie's hand, her voice soft. "You were incredible tonight. You stood up to her." "You made me brave," Ellie said, her eyes meeting Maya's. "I couldn't have done it without you." Maya smiled, leaning in to kiss her, slow and tender. "We're Team Harper. Always." As they drifted to sleep, tangled together, Ellie felt a shift inside her. The wedding had been a battlefield, but she'd emerged stronger, her love for Maya a shield against Victoria's venom. But she knew this wasn't the end. Victoria's pride was wounded, and she'd come for them again. The question was, how would they fight back? The days after the wedding were a blur of quiet recovery. Ellie and Maya returned to their Brooklyn routine, coffee runs, late-night sketching, stolen kisses in the glow of their apartment's fairy lights. But the weight of that night lingered, a mix of triumph and unease. Ellie couldn't shake James's words or the raw anger in Victoria's eyes. Her sister wasn't one to let a public defeat slide. A week later, the storm hit. Ellie's phone buzzed with a notification from a gossip blog, the kind that thrived on Manhattan's elite. The headline screamed, "Harper Wedding Drama. CEO's sister steals spotlight with partner." The article twisted the night's events, painting Ellie and Maya as attention-seeking disruptors, with quotes from anonymous guests claiming they'd hijacked the wedding. The slideshow was mentioned, but framed as a heartfelt tribute that Ellie had ungratefully upstaged. Ellie's stomach dropped as she read, her hands shaking. Maya, peering over her shoulder, cursed softly. "She's behind this," Maya said, her voice tight. "Victoria's spinning the narrative." Ellie nodded, her throat tight. She could picture Victoria, cool and calculated, feeding the story to the press to reclaim control. The comments section was a cesspool, some defending Ellie and Maya, others spewing vitriol about their lifestyle. Ellie slammed her phone down, tears stinging her eyes. "Why can't she just leave us alone?" Maya pulled her close, her voice fierce. "Because she's scared. You showed her up, Ellie. You showed everyone what real love looks like, and she can't handle it." But the article was just the beginning. Over the next few days, Ellie's freelance clients, small galleries and indie brands, started pulling back. Emails went unanswered. Projects were postponed. One client, a nervous gallery owner, admitted they'd been warned about reputational risks tied to Ellie's public behavior. Victoria's reach was long, her influence a weapon she wielded with precision. Ellie's confidence, so hard-won at the wedding, began to crack. She spent hours staring at her sketchbook, unable to draw, the fear of losing everything creeping in. Maya noticed her worry growing. One night, she dragged Ellie to their favorite dive bar, a grungy spot in Williamsburg where the jukebox played old soul tunes. "We're not letting her win," Maya said, sliding a beer across the table. "We fight back. Together." Ellie managed a weak smile.
"How?"
"She's got money, power, connections. We've got what? A couple of paintbrushes and a beat-up car?" Maya's eyes sparkled with mischief. "We've got each other." and we've got people who believe in us. Let's tell our story our way. The idea took shape over beers and greasy fries. Maya suggested a joint art project, a public installation that would reclaim their narrative. They'd create a series of paintings and designs, telling the story of their love, their struggles, and their resilience. They'd pitch it to Lena, the artist from the wedding, who had connections to a community art space in Brooklyn. The next day, they met Lena at a cramped cafe, her purple hair a beacon of hope. She loved the idea, her enthusiasm infectious. "This could be huge," she said, scribbling notes. "We'll make it raw, real, something that hits people in the gut." Victoria's not the only one with a voice. They spent weeks planning, sketching, and painting. Ellie poured her heart into designs that captured her journey, her pain, her love, her defiance. Maya's paintings were vibrant, bold, weaving their story into colors that screamed life. They worked late into the night, their apartment a chaos of canvases and coffee mugs, their laughter a balm against the fear. The art space, a converted warehouse in Bushwick, was perfect, gritty, authentic, a far cry from Victoria's polished world. Lena pulled strings, securing a weekend slot for the installation. They titled it Unapologetic, a name that felt like a battle cry. Word spread through Brooklyn's art scene, and soon, local blogs and social media were buzzing. But Victoria wasn't idle. A day before the opening, Ellie received an email from Harper Enterprises' legal team, threatening a defamation lawsuit over misrepresentations of Victoria's character. It was a scare tactic, vague but chilling, designed to silence them. Ellie's hands shook as she showed Maya the email, her old fears resurfacing. "We can't stop now," Maya said, her voice steady. "She's scared, Ellie. This is proof we're getting to her." Lena agreed, urging them to push forward. They hired a lawyer friend to review the email, who confirmed it was mostly bluster, no real grounds for a lawsuit. Emboldened, Ellie and Maya threw themselves into the final preparations, hanging their work under the warehouse's exposed beams, the space alive with color and emotion. The night of the opening arrived, and the warehouse was packed. Artists, activists, locals, even a few curious Manhattanites who'd heard the buzz. Ellie and Maya stood at the center, hand in hand, their work a testament to their love. The crowd's response was electric, their applause echoing off the walls. Ellie felt a surge of pride, her heart full. But as she scanned the crowd, her eyes caught a familiar figure in the shadows, Victoria, alone, her face unreadable. Ellie's pulse raced. What was she doing here? Had she come to sabotage them, or was something else at play? The warehouse pulsed with energy, the crowd's murmurs blending with the soft hum of music from a local band. Ellie's heart pounded as she locked eyes with Victoria, who stood at the edge of the room, her tailored coat a stark contrast to the gritty art space. Maya followed Ellie's gaze, her grip tightening. "What's she doing here?" Maya whispered, her voice edged with suspicion. Ellie didn't know, but she felt the weight of her sister's presence like a storm cloud. Victoria's face was a mask, her usual confidence replaced by something unreadable. Anger? Curiosity? Regret? Ellie took a deep breath, Maya's hand anchoring her, and decided to face whatever was coming. She approached Victoria, the crowd parting around her. "What do you want, Vic?" Ellie asked, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Victoria's eyes flicked over the paintings, lingering on a canvas that depicted two women embracing under a stormy sky, their faces radiant with love. "This is unexpected," she said finally, her voice low, almost hesitant. "You've made quite a spectacle." "It's not a spectacle," Ellie said, her tone firm. "It's our truth. Something you wouldn't understand." Victoria's jaw tightened, but she didn't snap back. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I didn't come to fight, Ellie. I came to see what you've built." Ellie blinked, caught off guard. Was this another trick? But Victoria's eyes held a flicker of something genuine, something Ellie hadn't seen in years. Vulnerability. Before she could respond, Maya joined them, her presence a quiet strength. If you're here to cause trouble, Victoria, you're too late. This is our space, our story. Victoria's gaze shifted to Maya, then back to the art. I underestimated you, she said, almost to herself. Both of you. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Ellie's mind raced, replaying years of pain, Victoria's rejection, her cruelty, her need to control. But here, surrounded by their art, their community, Ellie felt something shift. She wasn't a scared teenager anymore, hiding her sketches from her sister's judgment. She was a woman who'd fought for her place, her love, her truth. Why are you really here? Ellie asked, her voice softer now, searching. Victoria hesitated, her composure cracking. James left me, she said finally, the words raw, unguarded. After the wedding, he said he couldn't do it, couldn't live with someone who manipulates everyone around her. He said he admired you too. Ellie's breath caught, James's confession in the parking lot echoing in her mind. She glanced at Maya, whose expression softened, though her eyes remained cautious. I'm sorry, Ellie said, and she meant it, despite everything. But that doesn't excuse what you did to us. I know, Victoria said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could control everything, my image, my life, you. But I saw your work tonight, and it's real. More real than anything I've built. The admission stunned Ellie, a crack in the armor Victoria had worn for years. The crowd around them buzzed, unaware of the quiet reckoning unfolding. Maya spoke, her voice gentle but firm. You hurt Ellie, Victoria. You hurt a lot of people. If you want to change, it starts with owning that. Victoria nodded, her eyes glistening. I don't know how, she admitted, but I want to try. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. Ellie wasn't ready for that, and Victoria hadn't earned it. But it was a start, a fragile thread of hope in a relationship long broken. Ellie felt a weight lift, not from absolution, but from the realization that Victoria's power over her was gone. She had Maya, their art, their community, a life built on love, not control. The night ended with the crowd cheering, the installation a triumph. Ellie and Maya stood together, their hands intertwined, their work a beacon of resilience. Victoria slipped away quietly, her presence no longer a threat but a question mark, a possibility of change, however small. Back in their apartment, Ellie and Maya curled up on the couch, the city's lights twinkling through the window. We did it, Ellie said, her voice thick with emotion. We told our story. Maya kissed her forehead, her smile radiant. And it's just the beginning. Their love had faced Victoria's cruelty, the world's judgment, and their own fears, and it had won. Not by tearing others down, but by building something true. Ellie knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Victoria's change, if it came, would be slow, and the world would always have its challenges. But with Maya by her side, Ellie felt ready for anything. Their love was unapologetic, unbreakable, and it had changed everything.